What if the most successful social experiment in modern history was an accident? And what if, when we tried to replicate it, we accidentally dismantled it instead? For generations, the American middle class was the backbone of the nation. It was the engine of the economy and a global symbol of opportunity. But today, that backbone is fracturing, not with a loud crash, but with a silent, relentless collapse. The secure job, the affordable home, the comfortable retirement, these pillars of a system have been quietly coming apart. The mystery isn't if it collapsed. The real mystery is how. How did a nation that built a prosperous middle class manage to lose it? This is the story of that silent collapse. To understand it, we have to go back to the moment it was forged. The year is 1945. The US stands alone, its economy primed for a new era. What happened next was the construction of a middle-class empire. The ingredients were unique. First, the GI Bill. It was the greatest wealth creation program for the middle class. It provided low-cost mortgages and paid for college. This created a boom in housing and a skilled workforce. Second, industrial dominance. With no real competition, American factories made everything. This created high-wage jobs for blue-collar workers. Third, the social contract. A new bargain was struck. Corporations shared profits with workers. A well-paid worker was also a customer who could buy the products they built. This created a virtuous cycle. This was the golden age. From 1,945 to the 1,970 seconds, the incomes of the bottom 90% grew faster than the top 1%. But this wasn't the natural endpoint of the American dream. It was a historical anomaly, a perfect, temporary, and fragile alignment. And the first tremors of the collapse were about to begin. By the 1,970 seconds, the cracks appeared. 3 seismic shocks hit the economy. The first shock was the end of global dominance. Germany and Japan had rebuilt. They were now fierce competitors with newer, more efficient factories. The US started running trade deficits. The second shock was the oil embargo of 1973. OPEC quadrupled oil prices. This triggered stagflation, the nightmare combo of high inflation and high unemployment. The old economic rulebook was useless. The third shock, the Volcker situation. To kill inflation, Fed Chairman Paul Volcker raised interest rates to nearly 20%. It worked, but the side effects were catastrophic. High interest rates vaporized the manufacturing sector. Factories closed. The Rust Belt was born. Millions of high-paying jobs vanished forever. This was the breaking point. The policy priority shifted to controlling inflation, even at the expense of jobs. The middle class was now seen as a cost to be managed. A new economic philosophy took hold: deregulation, tax cuts, and shareholder primacy. The era of financialization began. The economy shifted its focus from making things to manipulating money. The new goal: maximize shareholder value. The purpose of a corporation was now to increase its stock price above all else. This had 3 devastating consequences. 1, the war on labour. Labour became the primary cost to cut. Unions were busted. Jobs were outsourced. Pensions were replaced with 401 KS, shifting risk to the employee. 2, the debt for wages swap. With wages stagnant, how did people live? The answer was debt. Credit cards and home equity lines became the new way to fund the American dream. 3, a housing casino. A home became a speculative asset. Banks created risky products like mortgage-backed securities. This pyramid scheme led to the 2008 financial crisis, which wiped out nearly 30% of the middle class's wealth. The 2008 crisis wasn't the cause of the collapse, it was the diagnosis. The X-ray revealed the fractured backbone. The government bailed out the banks, and the Fed unleashed quantitative easing, creating money to buy financial assets. This flooded the system with cash, but who owns most financial assets? The wealthy. The stock market soared and the rich got richer, But the primary asset of the middle class, their homes stagnated, wages were flat. The recovery was a K-shaped recovery. The rich shot up while everyone else went down. The fixes helped the wrong people. The silent collapse is now the defining feature of the modern economy. The patterns are accelerating. Look at the data. Wealth. The top 1% now holds over 32% of the nation's wealth. The bottom 50% holds just 2.8%. Costs. Since 2000, college tuition is up 180%, medical care up 115%, and housing up 115%. Median income only up about 20%. Work. The gig economy creates jobs with no benefits, security, or predictable income. We are in the precarity era, a time of pervasive economic insecurity. The backbone is being replaced with a fragile structure. So, we have stagnant wages and a shift to debt. But that's only half the story. To truly understand the silent collapse, you need to see the other half of the vice tightening on the middle class. While their paychecks were frozen in time, the cost of the three pillars of middle-class life was skyrocketing. This wasn't just inflation, this was a fundamental repricing of the American dream. Let's break down this hidden war on your wallet. Pillar 1, the college trap. In the 1,970 seconds, you could pay for a year of public university with a part-time summer job. It was an affordable investment that almost guaranteed a higher lifetime income. What happened? State governments began slashing funding for public colleges. To make up the budget shortfall, universities had no choice but to dramatically raise tuition. At the same time, the federal government made student loans universally available. This created a dangerous cycle. Universities could raise prices because students could always borrow more money. It was a blank check. The result? Since 1980, the cost of college has increased by over 1,200%. Millions now begin their adult lives not with a savings account, but with a massive, non-dischargeable debt anchor. This delays home ownership, starting a family, and saving for retirement. Pillar 2, the healthcare bind. In the post-war era, good health insurance was a standard part of a job's benefits. But as companies focused on cutting costs, they shifted more and more of the premium and out-of-pocket expenses onto employees. Healthcare itself became financialized. It was no longer just a service. It was an investment vehicle. Hospital systems consolidated into giant monopolies. Pharmaceutical companies aggressively raised prices because they could. For the middle class, a medical emergency went from being a health crisis to a financial catastrophe. Even with insurance, a single hospital stay could wipe out a lifetime of savings. The fear of getting sick became the fear of going bankrupt. Pillar 3, the housing gambit. We talked about housing as a casino for Wall Street, but for Main Street, it became a different kind of trap. After the 2008 crash, large investment firms like Blackstone and others saw an opportunity. They used their cheap cash to buy up hundreds of thousands of single-family homes, often outbidding regular families. These homes were converted into rentals. This did two things. It drove up sale prices for the homes that were left, and it drove up rental costs for everyone. The basic dream of home ownership, the primary engine of middle-class wealth, was now being competed for against billion-dollar corporations. So, to conclude, what now? We've traced the path of the silent collapse. We saw the golden age, the shocks of the 70 seconds, the era of financialization, and the failed fixes. The evidence is clear. The American middle class, the nation's backbone, has been systematically weakened over decades. So, where do we go from here? What can we possibly do? First, it's important to understand that there are no easy one-click solutions. This was a complex problem built over 50 years, and it will require complex, sustained solutions. But the conversation has to start somewhere. We need to move from diagnosing the problem to debating the cures. This means having honest discussions about ideas that were once considered off-limits. For example, how do we rebalance power between workers and corporations in a globalized world? How do we make foundational needs like healthcare, education, and housing truly affordable again? How do we reform a tax and financial system that has increasingly favored wealth over work? These are not questions with simple answers. They require difficult trade-offs. But the first and most important step is to change the way we measure success. We have to stop equating a healthy economy solely with a rising stock market. A rising stock market doesn't pay the rent. We need a new scorecard, one that measures the health of the middle class. We should ask, are wages growing for the average worker? Is household debt going down? Are people feeling more economically secure? Shifting our focus is the essential first step. From there, we can start to rebuild. The silent collapse happened because we weren't paying attention. The rebuilding will require us to pay very close attention. It starts with awareness. It starts with conversations like this one. Now, it's your turn. What do you think is the most important step to rebuilding the American middle class? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get this crucial conversation started.